All right, so our next section in biology, section 3 in chapter 12, we're going to be talking about the early conditions on Earth, so billions of years ago, and we're going to talk about the main hypotheses of how life could have began on this planet. So there's a lot of different things in here on Earth's origin, and again, we don't know a ton because you'd need a time machine to get there, and really figure it out. But the most widely accepted hypothesis of Earth's origin, it suggests that our solar system would have coalesced out of a condensing nebula. So a nebula is just a cloud of gas and dust in space that starts to spin, and anywhere where there's more mass, right, it'll condense more and more to create things like our sun or other things like our planets, the asteroids, even the comets that are going around our sun in our solar system. So all of the objects in our solar system form pretty much the same way around the same time. But that doesn't mean that other stars don't have planets around them and didn't form at different times, right? But everything in our solar system seems to be somewhere around 4.5 billion years old, right? But the force that plays a big role, obviously, in this, I mean, all you have is a bunch of dust and gas, and as those particles collide and become bigger and bigger and bigger, they attract each other more and more and more, right? This is all about gravity. Gravity is the force that made everything the way that it is. In your notes, you can see that astronomers have observed this happening in other parts of our galaxy, right? This picture on this slide, this is called the Pillars of Life. It's a picture taken by the Hubble Space Telescope. And you literally see these clouds of gas and dust in space that are starting to condense in different areas. And you can actually, with these pictures, observe stars being formed and possibly planets that are going to be going around them, just like our own. So we know that that's pretty much the way it would likely happen, but again, you'd have to have a time machine to know for sure. But since we observe it elsewhere in the universe, we're pretty sure this is how it works. Otherwise, early Earth, a lot of this stuff, you kind of need to use your book for your study guide, but there's just some quick highlights in here. Early Earth would have been super violent, right? As everything's colliding and coalescing, right, our Earth would have been bombarded by asteroids, meteorites, and comets, right? One of the defining factors of a planet, sorry, Pluto, is that it's big enough to clear its path, which means basically Earth had to take a beating until it threw everything of note, anything of significant size in its orbit out of the way. And if it didn't throw it out of the way, it got smoked by it. So Earth was getting beat up for a long time. It would have been molten because it was so hot, all the energy from those collisions, right? Eventually, Earth starts to cool down a little bit. Hydrogen, carbon monoxide, nitrogen gases would be released from the core, and then those gases combine to form an atmosphere that has ammonia, water vapor, methane, carbon dioxide. Now, some of these things are still in our atmosphere, right? Like the nitrogen, the water, the carbon dioxide. The one thing that's missing, the key thing for you, would be that oxygen that's down here, right? But again, oxygen doesn't come until later, right? Not until living things started to photosynthesize, started to use that photosynthesis to make sugars, did oxygen actually become a significant part of our atmosphere. So eventually it got there, but early on, there would have been no oxygen, right? But there's a key to this. At the end, it says what important substance to all life would not have existed in the right form. Because I did say that it was there. I mean, I listed it. But when you say vapor, water vapor is not exactly useful for a living thing, right? We needed that water to cool down and make those oceans, those lakes, those streams, everything else before we could have life really happening, right? So it's going to have to cool down to be in that liquid form so that we could have living things.